Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Saadia Inkster, and this is my mother, Ima. Hello, Ima.
Hi, how are you? And I hope you're eating your vegetables and you're getting enough sleep and you're doing enough exercises, being a good boy.
I'm doing whatever I can. I'm doing. Look, COVID-19. Just saying. Yeah. So,
Don't let a little deadly virus stop you. Come on
of
now.
course not. Of course not. So this week's topic, like we teased a little bit last week, had to do with traveling. Um, I know I had my experience with traveling, and you have as well. Um, we, I know I've had a little more adventurous times. Um, I went to Israel, Egypt, Jordan. Um, I've been to Italy. I've been to Amsterdam, and I had a lot of good times, but definitely there were some moments where I was a little worried. Um, this one time, it was right before I left Israel. We were at a bar, and this guy came in with a machete, and he was trying to attack us. And me and my friends, we threw some beer bottles at him, and we were able to stall enough for the cops to come and restrain him. Um,
How did he take to the beer bottles?
we were able to. He ran away. He was able to run a little further away down the streets, but as he was running away, that's when the cops came, and then they were able to like detain him and hold him down. Um, there was another time where I was walking with my friend, and this guy was eyeballing me. It was late at night, and I didn't know what was going on. So I decided to be like, I get up in his face, I'm like, "What's your problem? Is there an issue? Like, why are you like staring at me?" And he gets up and he's about to, looks like he's about to push me, and my friend just drags me and like gets me to like go away. I'm like, "Dude, why'd you drag me away?" He's like, "You didn't see that running van with the door open right behind you?" I'm like, "Nope." He's like, "Dude, you're about to get kidnapped." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Um, Another time, I was stuck in a riot um, in Jerusalem, and I was trying to get away. And there was this police officer on a horse, and these police officers aren't like in America where you know they try to hold some kind of restraint. These guys are told to use zero restraint.
Ain't no
So if
such
they
thing as police brutality charges in foreign
Nope.
countries.
Nope. There's no police brutality charges whatsoever. So if they see you, they don't care if you're innocent, guilty. You're in that area, you get clocked. So I had to duck down into a bush and curl up in a ball and wait for everything to die down. And once everything died down, then I was able to get back, up and go back to my dorms. Um, but it's nice. I mean, traveling is an adventure. You don't really know that. I mean, I knew the culture, but there's still part of it I didn't know. Language you're not so sure of. You're still trying to figure things out. You meet new people from other countries that are visiting the same country you are, and you just exchange stories, and it's a lot of fun. Um, a one language story I kind of got messed up on was if someone speaks Hebrew or Arabic, you might find this funny, but I just came to Israel and I was at a bar and I wanted to be all like, look at me, I speak Hebrew, and I asked for a plastic cup. Now, plastic in Hebrew is like in English, it's called plastique. Now, a cup in Hebrew is called a kos. A vagina in Hebrew is called a kus. And I asked for a kus plastique. Basically, I asked for a plastic vagina, and the waitress looked at me as if I was crazy. And then my friend had to correct me and like, oh, okay, alrighty, you live and learn.
Well, talking about, you such things. When your father and I were in Israel last time, your brother took us to a Yemenite restaurant. And on the menu was something I wanted to order just for the sake of bragging rights, just so I could do it and say that I did. It was bull's testicles.
Ooh, I think it's called like they're called blue oysters or something like that. I think that's
Uh,
actually like a delicacy. It's called blue crab. No. Um,
Well, you're talking about like, we're talking about, funny things that happened to us, there's a reason why movies and books that are comedies have been written about Americans traveling to foreign countries, because the cultures are so just completely diverse, and the funny things that happen to Americans, for some reason going to foreign countries. Um, there was one incident where, well, first of all, when I first went to Israel in 1973, and I heard all this Hebrew being spoken around me, and at that time, very few people spoke English. French in 1973, the most prevalent language in Israel at that time was French, not English. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, I felt like running up to the people around me and saying, hey, I just graduated cum laude with a BA degree. I'm really an intelligent person. I'm really not stupid. But when your father and I went to Israel just a few years ago, there was a funny incident that happened to us. We were going that morning to Hebron, and it was a very, very busy morning. It was early in the morning. It was like commuter traffic. And we were going to the bus station. We're going to have breakfast there and then get on the bus to Hebron. And so when we came into the bus station, I didn't realize that you're supposed to take your pocketbook and put it on the other side of the metal detector. I thought you go through the metal detector holding your pocketbook. Well, that particular morning, I had dressed in a long black skirt, and I was wearing a very large black kerchief, head scarf. And I didn't realize it till later, but evidently a lot of Palestinian women dress like that. Plus, I was carrying this big bag with me, this big pocketbook, huge, almost like a tote. It was actually a tote bag. Now, your father and your brother take more after your father's side of the family, is tall and very white, very Ashkenazic looking. I'm small and dark. So the female guard that was at the doorway sees what looks like a small Palestinian woman carrying this big bag, and I didn't want to lose them because it was so much.
oh shit.
There were so many. It was so crowded at the bus station. I didn't want to get lost in the crowd, so I was coming in behind your father and your brother, very, very close to them, carrying a huge tote bag. It looked like this little Palestinian woman is trying to sneak in this big bag behind these two big Ashkenazic Jewish guys. Well, the guard let out a scream. I mean, bloody murder. She was screaming like crazy. Your brother very quickly turns around, runs to her, and I see him talking to her very, very quickly and pointing to me and talking. And I walk over and I said, hey, what's going on? And the guard looks at me and she gives me a nice smile and and I can see she lets out this this like sigh of relief. And your brother turns to me and says, she thought you were a Palestinian terrorist trying to sneak in a bomb.
Oh God. Well, what's funny you say that about misidentification. Me and Yosef, we actually when we went to Egypt and Jordan, and we went to Jordan and Egypt, and we went to Israel from Jordan, Egypt, we had a rule. Yosef spoke to the Israeli border guards in Hebrew, and I kept quiet. And then when I went into Egypt and Jordan, because I look, more Middle Eastern, more I'm darker skin and whatnot, I spoke to them in the Arabic that I knew, and just to warm them up and have a more friendlier transition. And we actually got a free 6-month visa in Jordan, and we got a half-price 3-month visa in Egypt.
Oh my!
That's the way I was spoken.
How did you guys manage that? What did you get? What did you do?
You come in with a smile. It's like, "If Allah, baby," and you let them talk a little longer. You just do the smile and the nod, and then you just be like, "Oh," you show them your passport, and they're like, "Oh." And also, my name is Egyptian, actually.
Yeah, you mentioned something to me that after you came back from that trip, you asked me why I spelled your name the way I did. And I said, the reason I spelled your name the way I did on your birth certificate is because of all the years I had studied Spanish and Italian. And I just automatically spelled it like that, phonetically with the I sounding like a hard E. And you said to me, yes, because you said to me, that's the way that it's spelled in Arabic. Oh, great. But you were telling me coming back over the border to Israel, you had some really funny
Oh
stories.
yes, yes. So the problem with my name, and the reason why Yosef was the one that first spoke in Hebrew, was because I was the one that was being patted down every single time. And after our trip from Egypt to Israel, I was tired. I was really tired, and I was done being patted down and done being like sorted out, and like basically like they look at me, they size me up, and they assume, the worst. And I got tired, so I said, "Fine, screw it." And I went ahead and I just stripped down to my boxers. I'm like, "You want to pat me down? Pat me down." And they got the hint. But then we were putting our bags in to the X-ray, and the lady in charge of the X-ray screams, "Ah, khatul, khatul," which means cat in Hebrew. And I'm like, did somebody sneak a mummified cat into our bag? Like, what happened? Nope, a cat was just lying there in the X-ray, just chilling, and like what she screamed and whatnot, like it ran away.
That's funny.
But
But I think there's people though that that are listening to our podcast and might not be aware that the ancient Egyptians did mummify cats. If there was a cat that was Pyro's favorite cat or something, after if the cat died, they would actually mummify it and they would put it in the tomb. So you were probably quite frightened that maybe some Egyptian was trying to frame you by sticking one of those cat mummies in your bag.
well, because what happened was that it was really interesting. We went to Egypt 2 weeks before the Arab Spring. So tensions was really high in that place, and people were being very cautious of one another. I was given the tour by this Christian woman that was there, and she was telling me how worried she was. Um, and I was in, and I don't think anyone else really understands the gravity of the situation unless you were there. But I was they to travel between Israel and Egypt and actually get to Cairo, there's like a 6-hour drive in the desert, the Sinai Peninsula. And there also, as a religious Jew, I have religious obligations to do prayer. And I had to put on my tefillin, my religious phylacteries. So I was able to put on my Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam tefillin on the back seat of an Arab convoy of people traveling, and I wasn't so sure how kindly they were to religious Jews, so I would just like kind of hid a little bit, and was able to do my prayers and then leave. But the place itself was really neat. I really enjoyed, you know, going to Egypt, seeing the pyramids. They're a lot smaller than you'd think. Obviously, with cinematography and whatnot. Ooh, also, I wanted to tell you, there was this documentary me and Ruthie saw recently, and it was a documentary about this area in Egypt where they do these excavations, and they found a mummified baby lion.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was like the first of its kind.
Wow.
It's really cool.
So, some pharaoh like it was his favorite baby lion that passed away. Oh,
Something
God.
like that. Yeah, it was really neat.
Uh-huh.
It's like we only had like 12 hours to be there, so we had to like go through everything really quick in Egypt. I wish I
Mhm.
could stay there longer. I wish I traveled more, but like it is what it is. But it was really really cool. Now, you remember you telling me a story back in the day about you being in Switzerland and meeting a what Nigerian prince or like royalty or something?
No, what happened was I in my junior year of college, they had during something called mini mester, and during the mini mester they were offering a group tour of the educational system of Italy, and it was only $300, and this included, oh my goodness, this included airfare. It was a chartered plane and hotels, food, everything was amazing. So we stayed at a student dormitory called Forto Atatico in Rome. And incidentally, they had a track there, this beautiful track that had been built by Mussolini. And Mussolini built this running track based on the Greek model, where he had statues of Greek gods and goddesses all around the track. And this track was built, I think, like in the early 1930s. So I was into running. So I went to the track to run around, and it was so weird running around this track. And here, it's not, and when you see, you're running around this track and you're surrounded with this beautiful, amazing statuary, like big statuary all around you. Now, but when I was in Italy, so when I was there, Italy, there are a lot of students from Africa whose parents will send them to study in Italy because they want them, of course, to get a good education. They want them also to have like a more Western education. And so there were many students there from Africa whose parents were either big people in the government or very wealthy industrialists, or the sons of the chiefs of the tribes. So there was this young man I met there from Upper Somaliland, and very nice. He took me out to dinner. He was the son of the chief of his tribe, and that's why his father was sending him to be educated in Italy. So he had these gashes on his face that you could tell that these were not like violent gashes from a fight. These were, it was a pattern. It was a regular, like almost like an artistic pattern on his face of these 2 gashes on both sides of his cheeks. And it was obviously, these were made intentionally. So I asked him what these were about. And he said that it's the custom of the people of his tribe that if your mother lost a lot of children before you were able to survive to, say, an appreciable age, and it looked like you were going to survive to adulthood, that they would put these gashes, they would actually make these gashes on your face as a sign of mourning for the children that your mother had lost. And he told me he had a sister, and he says his sister also had those gashes. So what's so interesting is when you read the Torah, where it says you are not allowed to make gashes on your skin for those who are deceased. I actually saw this.
That's really cool.
I actually saw somebody from a culture that actually continues to do this.
That's really neat. That's why it's so much fun to go ahead and travel. I mean, I know I used to hitchhike a little bit when I was in Israel. I mean, you got to be careful and know what you're doing, because you could either, be totally fine or have your head cut off. But like,
yes, I tried hitchhiking in Israel too. I do not recommend it.
I was fine. I got to where I needed to get to, and there actually were like certain spots, but like, yeah, it's kind of funny where it's like you do realize it's like literally you can either get someone who's willing to help you out and drive you all the way to your home and make sure that you're safe, or like total opposite. But
yes.
wait, so did you ever hitchhike when you were in Switzerland, or was it Sweden? Like,
It was Switzerland. Yes, I did. I hitchhiked in Switzerland from Zurich to Bern. Beautiful. The countryside there is beautiful. The mountains. I took a cable car up one of the mountains, and the Jungfrau, it was during the summertime. All these places are usually, during the winter time, all these places are usually skiing resorts. But during the summertime, they're very, very beautiful just to go hiking like that. And before I did this, I spoke to some young girls in the airport to make sure. I'd heard rumors that hitchhiking in Switzerland at that time in 1973 was very safe. I understand from people living in Switzerland now, it's no longer safe because of all the immigration they've had from third world countries. But at that time it was safe, and a lot of girls my age told me, that they hitchhiked all the time and that it was, perfectly safe and it was okay. Except one girl said, well, there might be, she goes, there's only one thing that's not safe about it. I said, what? She goes, if the car you're riding gets into an accident, the insurance won't pay for your injuries.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I said, if she considers that not safe, boy, it's got to be safe. So I got a ride with a gentleman who had this beautiful, beautiful sound system in his car. And I got in, I thought, oh boy, I'm in for a treat. Well, I didn't realize what a horrendously horrible experience I was about to have. It was 45 minutes of German rock and roll. Now, German rock and roll today is a little different from what German rock and roll was in 1973. But can you imagine having to sit there for 45 minutes listening to the German brass band going oompa, 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 oompa with a rock beat?
Oh God, a rock beat polka music. No, I
Yes.
can't. I can't. Which reminds me, by the way, because you mentioned Germany. I was in Amsterdam as a stopover, and I definitely was curious to try the Amsterdam special. And I went ahead and I just rolled a small joint in one of the cafes, started smoking a little bit, and just walking around and appreciating the architecture. And I see this Russian guy with his girlfriend. So me being friendly, like, hey, you want to hit? He's like, sure. And then I didn't realize that in Russia, the culture is if you give something to them, they give it back to you almost tenfold. So he said, come here. I got some stuff to give to you. So I said, sure, no problem. And he makes this hash bong with such intense smoke. Like I try to have it and I just, boom, I'm gone. And like, I am totally lost. And I'm trying to like ask people like, I have my flight to go to in 2 hours. I need to get to the airport. And I'm like, and luckily there's this one kid, definitely from Amsterdam, definitely used to this stuff. Was like, here, let me show you. And like literally helped me from the airline, from the train station. He with me all the way to the airport.
Oh,
And I
that's
was like
sweet.
sat there, just like sitting there. And I was like, had a conversation with like some random other Jewish couple that was about to go to Israel. We were we were getting really friendly, and then the Israeli guys go ahead and they start like questioning me and whatnot. And they're like, "Do you know each other?" And we're looking at each other like, "Oh no, we don't know each other. Like I don't know who you like. Let's just not have that issue." But he gave me. I remember the guy gave me he made homemade beef jerky, which was really good.
Oh, wow.
And then I get on the flight and I crack out.
God, you were lucky you were able to make it on the plane.
Oh yes, no,
Yeah.
I was very, very lucky. I was able to make it on the plane. Seriously.
But you brought up like a few things like when your father and I were in Israel, like some of the horrendously hysterical things that happen. Sometimes we were driving and in Jerusalem, and we were just following the GPS.
Oh no.
And the GPS says, make a right-hand turn onto Jaffa Street. So we make the right-hand turn, and we see all these people are running towards us and yelling and screaming and waving their arms. And so one guy comes up to our car, and your father opens the window and says, excuse me, is this Jaffa Street? And the guy was American. He says, yes, it's Jaffa Street, but you better get out of here right away. And your father says, why? He says, you are riding on the metro tracks.
Yeah. I remember Jaffa when it wasn't a metro track. I remember when it wasn't. I remember when they were in the middle of doing it. I remember when they finished it. And Yerushalayim is definitely changes. Israel itself is such a young country. It's developing so quickly that like your experience in the 70s was nothing like your experience in 2000. And like I would say, what you went there at 2012, 2014.
Yes. Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. Because when we were there, I wanted to ride around some of the places where I had been in 1973. Very different. I could barely recognize it. And these very commercialized, there were some places where they were like almost like foothills. And now they're totally commercialized. There was this one neighborhood. Well, when I was in there in 73, I decided to volunteer at a youth center for underprivileged children. And the very, very depressed, like it was like almost like a slum-like neighborhood where these kids were living, has been totally replaced with this beautiful shopping mall where I couldn't afford where I cannot afford any of the prices there.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the other thing they have an issue with in Israel, where it's just the price of living has gone up so high that people are moving to Berlin.
Mhm.
It was a whole big thing in Germany. Like
Really?
I think
Oh my gosh.
some Israeli went ahead and like did this whole receipt like comparison where like the amount of money I spend in Berlin compared to how much I'm spending in Israel. Oh man. But back to traveling. Did you do any traveling, I guess, in the United States? Any road trips?
Road trip, the United States road
Maybe a road trip to
trips.
I have a road trip. I have a Canadian road trip story.
We I was a counselor at a camp, and it was part of Ghana. It was a camp in the Laurentian Mountains in Montreal, and I I was in charge of the bus that went from Crown Heights to there, um, and it was very very the atmosphere there is the woods, the beautiful. It was a beautiful trip. The foliage, the mountains, everything is just very, very beautiful. Coming back, the last night of camp was the last night for the summer. And so we decided not to have, lights out at all. We decided instead to let these kids stay up and party as much as they want.
That's
Plus,
awesome.
we wanted to clean out the kitchen. It was open kitchen, ice cream, open party, the whole camp, even the little kids. Nobody went to bed that night. It was music blaring and everyone just walking around and eating and talking and getting together in the bunks and singing and just having a good time. Well, by dawn's early light, we get back on the bus, and by the time we hit the United States border, everybody was dead in their seats. I was halfway asleep, and I see the border guard get on the bus, looks around, and he calls out, "Okay, everybody here, American," and everybody sleeping goes, "Oh, yeah." Goes, "Okay, fine."
Oh wow. See, I had a similar situation. Well, not actually, no, it wasn't similar. It was totally different. Me and my friends at the age of 18 decided to go into the Canadian border to buy alcohol. And turns out that one of my friends basically freaked out and told the Canadian police that he had alcohol already in his car, and that it was his father's.
Oh no.
And we were like, "Oh my god!" And like at this point, like he had all of our passports. The Canadian guard had all the passports, and he's like, "Well, you know what? You can go ahead and drink and drive when you're in America, but you don't do it in Canada." And he gave us back our passports and let us into Canada. And we're like, "What? Wait, what do we do with this information?" And like we kind of like freaked out a little bit, and we got worried that we're going to get caught. So we decided to like not do it and decide to just go ahead and go back to America and just like ask somebody to buy us alcohol like normal teenagers, and we just got drunk at a park.
I don't
Uh,
understand the big deal that's made of alcohol in this country. I think it creates more problems than it solves.
of course it does. Well, that's why I'm so happy about Oregon. Did you not hear?
What?
Oregon
What happened?
fully legalized every single recreational drug.
What about alcohol?
No,
Oh.
they legalized it.
Well, what do you mean? Like alcohol is legalized from what, age 18 or what?
No, okay. So alcohol is legalized, of course, till age of 21. But Oregon just made a declaration and finally basically said that any kind of drug you have, you get $100 fine or you get put into rehab if you're caught with it.
That makes sense. Well, what I can't understand though is most countries in this world either have no drinking age or 18. That's usually international standards, for a lot of, for maybe the main 10 industrialized nations. Why the United States makes it 21, I just don't understand. It's ridiculous. I mean, you've got young people in the military that are 18. I
It's
mean,
stupid.
somebody who's fighting in a war or is in the military goes into a bar, 18 years old. What, they're going to not let them have a drink? It's really ridiculous.
Well, that's why when I was in Israel, and drinking age is 18 there, it was great. It was awesome. We all like basically drank so much that eventually we got kind of sick of it. Um, and that's what's kind of the whole deal is that they noticed even in America that there's more binge drinking in America than anywhere else in the entire world because we have so many alcoholic restraints up until 21. It's like pulling a freaking rubber band and then all the way to end and then just snapping it off and then it goes nuts. But I just want to say that I think we're at our limit for the time. But I
Okay.
want to thank you for joining me, and I want to thank our listeners for listening. So I hope everyone.
It's been fun.
Yeah, this is a fun thing to do. Actually, it's like a
I
nice
didn't
little.
know. I didn't know about you getting kidnapped. You didn't. You kept that from me.
I didn't tell you a lot of things. You're gonna find out throughout this podcast. I've done so much and kept my mouth shut so tight. It's gonna be hilarious. All right, I love you, Emma.
Love you, honey. Have a great Shabbos.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe and share. I really appreciate it, and my mother does as well.